Okay, welcome to First Universalist of New Madison on this soggy July 2nd. Big doings in New Madison this weekend. I didn't know anything about it until I drove through town and I couldn't get through town. So next year, remind me, or will somebody say something about it the week before so we can let people know.
I announced it last week, but I did not specifically say it was 4th of July.
Right. And you didn't say it was the Saturday and not the, I was thinking 4th of July would be 4th of July or, closer to it like Sunday. So, exciting day, rained like cats and dogs in the morning, so the parade was canceled, but it got nice in the afternoon, so they had all the activities which they tore down the old restaurant, which makes a nice place to gather in the center of town there. And then fireworks last night, which Tara's going to, she's preaching today, and then she's leaving for annual conference Monday, so she's packing everything else, so we missed the fireworks. We can still hear them from our house down at Rappidsville. So, anything else? Oh, I wanted to ask the question. They have a 6-day or 7-day raffle in New Madison, and they give away what? They give away a gun or 6 guns. They give away a gun every day.
I don't know.
Just want to bring up in Baltimore yesterday, 28 people wounded, 2 people killed from a gun, probably bought in Ohio and taken to Maryland, because they've got real strict laws in Maryland about buying and selling guns. So what people do is they go to states like Ohio and Indiana and Virginia and they buy guns cheap, and then they bootleg them. They take them up through the interstate and sell them for big profits in the states that don't have gun permits. So I'd be curious to know what kind of gun they're giving away. Is it like a 22 single shot or is it like an AR-15? So we'll find out for next year. All right. We also want to welcome Sophia Betancourt. Anybody know who that is? You probably should. That's our new UUA president, just elected by unanimous vote. I don't recall voting for her, but I must have. So hopefully she'll have a good term and can get some things accomplished. So welcome, Sophia. Let's see. Anything else for announcements? When's our annual meeting?
Yes, it's on July 23rd.
July 23rd.
And I believe Derek will be here that day, won't he?
I think he is here, yes.
Is he coming next week too, maybe?
No. Yes, Derek will be here the 23rd. Nobody the 16th, nobody the 30th, and nobody the 6th. So you'll have to listen to me those days. Do you want to do another movie day or another movie thing after? I've got
services after one of the services.
Yeah, after one of the services like we did before, we'll just have snacks and put a movie up here on the screen. So if you want to stay afterwards, if anybody has movies they want to see. I was thinking about Tomorrowland. Has anybody seen Tomorrowland? I think you would enjoy it. It's a short movie, a science fiction movie about a land. Well, Tomorrowland is actually like a Disneyland. It was created where everything worked right and people worked together to save the world and everything else. And the project was like a bunch of billionaires got together to do it, and it kind of failed. And then George Clooney is the actor in the movie, and a couple young girls discover it and try to recreate Tomorrowland. And it's basically a story about hope in the world and people giving up hope. And the little crime statement she makes is, there's a wolf at the door, and there's 2 things you can feed the wolf. You can feed them optimism and good news, or you can feed them pessimism and bad news. And what's happened in the Tomorrowland story is the world has been fed bad news and bad news and bad news, and it cycles around and comes back as more bad news. So the world basically comes to an end if the storyline follows through, except George Clooney and this girl managed to save the world in the end. But it's a fun story. It's an interesting story. I think you're going to kick out of it. So I think that's what we're going to do. So we'll pick a Sunday and go ahead and do it. And we'll have snacks. I got another air fryer on sale, and I thought that worked really well for the little mini hot dogs and the mini quiches and all that stuff. So we'll have drinks and food. Okay, that's our welcome. Our prelude is Lift Every Voice and Sing.
I have written on my music that this is the official song of the NAACP, and it's the unofficial song of the Black National Anthem. Now, whether that's all I did, I don't know, but I do have it written on my music. And if you wish to follow the words, it's page 149 in companion.
Very nice. And you'll notice our theme, since it's July 2nd, is July 4th. Anybody guess who painted the painting? My favorite artist of the 40s and 50s.
Norman Rockwell.
Norman Rockwell. And this is in the 40s and 50s when integration wasn't really a theme or anything, nobody knew anything about it. So take a look at the picture. You've got the little white boy, the little blonde white boy at the top of the flag, or the top of the street light, waving his hat, and then coming up below is the little black kid who doesn't look terribly happy. So it's an interesting comment. This is on the cover of the Saturday Evening Post, which went to millions of people in the day, in the 40s and 50s. Everybody read magazines, and everybody saw those pictures. So just an interesting little thing. And I'll give you some trivia. Might as well do that while we're at it. Which president was born on the 4th of July? President born on the 4th of July. Calvin Coolidge. 3 presidents died on the 4th of July. Jefferson, John Adams, and Monroe.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
Jefferson, Adams, and Monroe all died on the 4th of July. Jefferson and Adams died on the same day, the same 4th of July in 1836. And then Monroe was in like 41 or 42, I forget the date on that. And the third one, what country declared independence from the U.S. on the 4th of July? What country declared independence from the United States on the 4th of July? The Philippines. If you remember, we took the Philippines from Spain during the Spanish-American War, and we made them a colony, and the Filipinos actually revolted against the American army, and there were numerous deaths over that, and the American legislature decided to grant them or allow them to have independence, somewhat like the British allowed us to have our independence. It wasn't exactly freely given. So interesting little tidbits for the 4th of July. All right, our chalice lighting is by Tracy Bleakney. This chalice burns with a real hot flame. This fire burns for those who seek and defend the right to a free and responsible search for truth and meaning so that each person may live according to the conscience of their choice in a democratically elected society. The flame burns for the defenders of freedom, working against those who would impose their own religious beliefs on others through intimidation or legislation. May we tend this fire always, ever vigilant and courageous in the struggle for freedom and justice for all. Our opening hymn is a copy that we've provided, and so you can sing along. If you don't mind, turn them in when we're done so we can do them again whenever the next time this comes up. Eternal Father, strong to save. For those in peril on land or on the sea, I guess we could dedicate this to the explorers who did not come back from their exploration of the Titanic. Our affirmation: Giver of Being and Freedom by George Kimmick Beach. Giver of being and freedom, thou who touches our lives in unforeseen ways, who unsettles our ease and upsets our self-satisfactions. We wait in these moments of stillness to let the hidden processes of healing and growth do their silent work within us, and to let the quiet work of recognition and reconciliation be renewed among us. Because we know that the ultimate issues of life, healing and growth, reconciliation and renewal, cannot be forced, neither by excess of activity nor by tumult of words. We seek out this stillness. We seek the quiet, the resting place of our restless hearts. Because we live with mystery, we trust that which is deeper than we know, that which touches our hearts, which steadies us and rekindles our spirits, which finally in faith may be named the love that has laid hold upon us and will not let us go. All right, joys and concerns.
My daughter and my two grandkids were with me all this week.
Oh, good.
They left yesterday, and that is a big joy to me. I don't go anymore. It's 2-hour trip, so it's really nice when they come to see me. I think I will go to my grandson's bar mitzvah. But
Take an Uber. You don't have to drive. You can have somebody else drive you.
well, my wife drives all the time anyway, because I'm not. She's a good driver, and I'm terrible. So.
There you go. No excuses.
And she is all the time critiquing me when she's the passenger. So I just let her do the drive.
Been there, done that. All right, grandkids, great things. Like I say, I've told you before, I have to get mine from the welfare department, so. Anything else? We want to have concerns for Larry Householder. You know who Larry Householder is?
Yes.
He was just convicted of the First Energy bribery scandal, which got some of our representatives elected to the State House to 20 years in prison. Now, it's questionable whether that will hold up, but at least the courts in this case, and this guy took, I think, $5 to $6 million to do the bidding of First Energy, which would cost or will cost or would have cost the taxpayers of the state of Ohio $6 billion. If you noticed, your electric bills went up a couple years ago.
Still are.
And they're still up. And what they went up for was because First Energy wanted us to subsidize the coal plants, which don't make enough money to stay profitable, and the nuclear plant, which does not make enough money to stay profitable. But they didn't want to close them. And for all you hear about how green energy is worthless and causes trouble and kills birds and is expensive, actually green energy, solar and wind and hydro is cheaper than coal, cheaper than nuclear. And the only real problem with it is you have to find some way to store it. And they are inventing things every year, or new inventions come up. The latest one is in the daytime when you've got plenty of extra solar, you pump water up a hill. And at night when you don't have any sun, you let the water come down the hill and it turns a turbine and generates electricity. It seems pretty simple. And you can also inject it into a pressure well underground and then bring it back up again and turn the turbine. So there are solutions for these problems. So I'm sure Mr. Householder is not going to be happy in his new domicile. So
$60
our
million.
thoughts. What's
First
that?
Energy gave him $60 million.
To spend.
Yeah, $60 million.
Yes.
Lots of them went into dark money funds, but he pocketed it several million.
And one of the reasons he was given such a harsh sentence is he was kind of a jerk from what they say. He lorded it over people, threatened them if they didn't do what he told them to do. And I'm sure that's our personal legislator's excuse. I was threatened, so I had to take that money and put it in my pocket and spend it and then vote the way he wanted me to vote. I'm not buying that. So,
Where will he be imprisoned?
I do not know. They didn't say, they didn't specify which prison. I'm sure
Federal.
it's a federal prison, and I'm sure it's one of the executive prisons. for white collar prisoners. They have, I don't know if they have golf courses, but they have nice manicured lawns they can walk on. It's where the woman who was convicted, Martha Stewart, was convicted of stock manipulation and spent time in prison, which is another, we can go into that some other time. All right, I mentioned 30 people shot and killed. This is this week's toll, and there was more before this. This is the last one I saw. 28 people wounded, 2 people killed in Baltimore at a party in the 12:30 in the morning. Who knows what's going on? People just indiscriminately shoot all over the place. So it is my personal belief there are too many guns out there. So I would request that New Madison give away maybe a tennis racket or a golf club or something besides a gun, a fishing rod, anything but a gun. All right, anything else? Oh, my wife is going to annual conference. She'll be there for a week, so travel mercies. Hopefully she has no troubles on the way down. They had an interesting time because who's the famous singer who's in Cincinnati this weekend? Who? Yes. She's there, and people, because there were no parking spaces and the shortage, people were fanatically attending her concerts. They actually rented hotel rooms just to get the parking space. So the Church of the Brethren people are showing up Saturday and Sunday. The people who have to come early to set up the exhibit halls and do the planning, they can't get in their hotel room because they've all been booked by the Taylor Swift fans. So there's a real jam up going on there. But Tara's room hers is there for Monday, so she should be in good shape. Anything else?
I'm grateful to see the tree over there. To me, that is a new hanging. What's the significance of a tree to the UU?
This tree, if you notice, I don't know if it's actually, well, it is a tree. It has all these leaves on them. You have the roots in the ground and the leaves in the top, and it's like the Bible with bear fruit for your good works. Those are the good works of the Unitarian Universalists. If you pay attention, we changed this. We got about 7 or 8 or 9 banners, and I change them one every week.
Oh, darn. That's the first time I noticed that it was changed. I guess the gold on the black caught my eye. It says something justice. What's the first word? Creating justice.
Creating justice, yes.
Okay.
And that's a theme of the Unitarian Universalist. I guess we could do a sermon series on what the banners mean. That's something that nobody's ever asked before, and I've never really paid any attention. They all have a statement on them, and they all are something that we, just kind of like the chalice, we use as kind of a symbol of what we do and what we stand for and what we believe.
We practiced one time in our director's church there in Eaton, and they had something hanging on the wall, and I asked him what it was all about. He explained it to me, so I thought, we ever had a guest here and they asked me about that, I should be able to explain it to them.
Yep, I agree. And that's just my interpretation. I don't know what the official interpretation is, so let me go to the UU organization website and see if they have an explanation.
Oh, all right.
And
well, I guess I can do that too, for that matter.
Anybody can do it, but most people don't.
Well, and I probably won't. I'm too lazy.
And if I do it, I'll present it to you and anybody who's watching on Facebook. So that's the way we'll do that.
That's true.
All right. We still want to remember the Ukraine. The latest word. You know that 2 weeks ago the Russians blew up the dam, which we talked about. Now they've been planting explosives in the largest nuclear plant in Europe. And the fear is they're going to actually blow up the nuclear plant and create a nuclear winter across the border so the Ukrainians can't invade Russia from there. These people you'd think that would be too crazy for anybody to do, but I'm not so sure anything, after they blew up the dam, I'm not sure anything is too crazy to do. And the Ukrainians right now are having drills, how to decontaminate people, how to evacuate people. They've got big water tanks stored. When you come out of the hot zone, you get sprayed down with water to wash the radioactive dust off of you and give you clean clothes. They're already practicing that, so they are taking this as a serious threat. So we still have our sunflowers for the Ukraine. We do not want to forget the Ukrainians. And I brought in a hydrangea from home, and Roberta brought, what is that?
It's a lily.
A lily from home. So we still have our homemade flower presentations.
The ingredients right now are in the middle of a counterattack.
Yes.
And I heard a lieutenant, there's a U.S. Lieutenant General that the news channel that I watch, they interview him all the time about military-oriented things. And he said that a lot of people are saying that isn't going well. But he said he thought it was going well. He said that what they're doing, he said, I've done it before on the battlefield, and he said it's not easy to do that. He said they're probing for weaknesses right now because they're going to hit those weaknesses a little later. But he said, I think they're doing well with this, what they got going now. So.
Yeah, I think everybody hoped to see a knife through butter scenario where they just raced all the way to the Russian border and took their territory back. And that's not happening. It's slow. They're making progress, but it's slow progress. And if you pay attention to the news, the Wagner group, that guy actually rebelled against Putin and sent these volunteer troops, we've talked about that, who are all criminals, who are sentenced to long sentences in Soviet jails. If they volunteer for this Wagner group, if they serve 6 months on the front, then they're given a pardon and freed and able to go back to their homes, which creates numerous problems, not the least of which is a bunch of criminals going back to their villages. These are murderers and rapists and robbers, and the people in the villages don't want to see them. They've been sentenced to long sentences, and now they're back in their villages. And not only are they back in their villages, they've had military training and probably stolen military weapons. So that's created a problem. But what happened was the leader of the Wagner group, whose name I can't pronounce, felt he wasn't being respected by the military leadership of Russia. So he just said, I'm going to take over the country. And they were within 100 kilometers of Moscow when he decided to stop and turn around. He was granted clemency and released by Putin. And he's flown to a neighboring country for his retirement, I guess. But we'll have to see what happens. This Wagner group also is representing Russia all through Africa, through Mali, through many third world countries. They are there upholding order, which means they are raping, pillaging, and killing people right and left to keep a corrupt government in power. In trade for the rights to mine gold, the rights to take rubber, the rights to take all the natural resources out of these countries and make the leadership in the black countries rich and make the Wagner group rich. So corruption continues in the world. We continue to try to be aware of it, to make an effort to do something about it, but it has not happened yet.
And a small, just a kind of a minor release this week, I believe, I don't think I dreamed this, that U.S. intelligence basically has released that there's a possibility, strong possibility that this Wagner group head who created insurrection in Russia was attempting to actually had a friend in high military in Russia. That really pinpoints some instability in what they thought was an impermeable situation. The other interesting part of that whole notion, in terms of social justice, he was banned to Belarus, but Belarus, Lukashenko, who heads up Belarus, is great friends with Putin. And rather than being exiled, I hate to say this, but you probably read as I have, but really a substitute for would be assassination for this guy, who has been taken to another country, but another country that's very friendly to Russia, and given Russia's record of eliminating its enemies, no matter where they are, including downtown London, it doesn't bid well for this head of the Wagner at all.
Yeah, there still is a power struggle going on. They had a satellite picture of the airfield that he was taken to. There are now 4,000 tents on that airfield. So he didn't go by himself. He took a large part of his army with him. So he may be assassinated. That's still up in the air because this is like the old-fashioned Italian mysteries and where people are poisoned. And if you watch Game of Thrones, real life is kind of like Game of Thrones when you get right into it. It's pretty scary and pretty unbelievable and hard to be involved in. Two of the generals that are the leaders, kind of like the chief of staff of the Russian army, two of those guys are missing. They haven't been seen for 2 weeks. So we don't know whether Putin had them arrested, whether they were in cahoots with the Wagner group, or whether they fell out of a building somewhere. And to remark on that, just yesterday, a 28-year-old vice president of one of the primary Russian banks was found on the ground underneath her 11-story apartment building in Russia, had accidentally, quote unquote, fallen to her death. If you pay attention to Russian news, there have been about 25 people have accidentally fallen out of high buildings and died. So we're not exactly sure what's going on. I'm sure somebody has a better idea than we do as the lay public, but it's not wise to go against the Russian government in any sense or any form. Even to say verbal things against the government can get you exterminated. Okay, children's story, or anything else for joys and concerns. If anybody doesn't like doing politics every Sunday, let me know and we'll go in a different direction. That's something that interests me, and I think it behooves all of us to pay attention to what's going on in the world, which is the reason I bring it up. If anybody doesn't want to do that, let me know, and we can do other things. We don't have to do this.
And if they say that to you, when you see me come in and tell me, otherwise I'll go ahead and bring something up. Tell us, just say, hi, I just saw you come in and sit down. This is a non-political Sunday.
Non-political Sunday, there you go.
Current events.
Current events, yes. We want to stay aware of current events. And I kind of made a promise to do that anyway because I'm getting the Capitol Journal, which tells you what's happening in Ohio. They passed a bunch more legislation, which I'm not going to go into now, but we'll probably talk about next week. The same thing as it always is, gerrymandered. It's railroaded through by one party over the objections of any normal, sane person. Joys and concerns, I forgot to put this up. Does anybody recognize what this is? It's a field of standing corn that was about 5 feet tall. They had great, strong, straight line winds in Illinois, and it basically blew all that corn completely over sideways. You can see the guy standing back here. That's what the stalks looked like before they blew over. Now that happened, yes?
I thought that's what it was, it pulled roots out of the ground too?
No.
Or just leaning?
It just bent them over. And that's the interesting thing. That happened to us, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago. And some people go say it's a loss and they go disc it up or tear it up. If you let those corn stand, corn is a green plant and it's what? Phototropic. So the roots are still on the ground, it's still growing. So it basically will stand back up. But interestingly enough, where it's bent, you can't straighten it up. So it comes out of the ground, it bends 90 and then it bends another 90 and it goes straight up again. So it's a really weird looking thing. If you see a bunch of corn that's got the gooseneck on it, and it does create problems when you're combining, because a combine throat is usually 15 to 18 inches for 15-inch corn. And if the darn corn is spread over like 12 inches, the throat doesn't know whether to push it in one side or the other side. So it does create, it's not like it's guaranteed you won't have any problems with it, but it still is better than losing your entire crop of corn. So I just thought that was an interesting thing. Thoughts and prayers are with the farmers. Yes.
They'll combine into it whichever direction it is.
Yes.
We had this out years ago, Joe Cooley.
Yep.
And he goes slow, it takes you to go slow.
Yep.
Can't go fast.
And in the old days, when we farmed, all of our fields were fenced. We had dairy cattle and beef cattle. When you're done combining, you turn the cattle out into the field, and they'll pick up all the corn ears that were dropped.
Right.
It's not wasted. Now you've got to hire kids to do it. Kids won't do anything. So you're screwed pretty much. All right. So now to the children's story.
The 4th of July, or Independence Day, is a fun summer holiday. A day when you may see lots of flags, parades, and fireworks. But have you ever wondered what the celebration is about? Back in 1775, the 13 American colonies rebelled against the control of Great Britain and sparked a war, known in the United States as the Revolutionary War. After a year of fighting, the Second Continental Congress took a vote and decided that it was time for the colonies to officially declare their independence from British rule. They wanted to be free and to be in charge of their own government. On June 11, 1776, the Continental Congress appointed Thomas Jefferson, along with Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Robert Livingston, and Roger Sherman, to write a document to explain why they were declaring their independence. Thomas Jefferson wrote most of it, but after some changes by the other members of the committee, they presented it to Congress on June 28th. At first, not everyone agreed to vote for independence. They argued and debated the issue for days. Finally, on July 2nd, the agreement to declare independence passed. Congress made a few changes to the words of the document, and 2 days later, on July 4th, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was officially adopted. Not only did the Declaration of Independence state that the colonies would no longer be under British rule, it said that governments only exist for the good of the people they govern, and that all people are equal. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Because July 4th is the day that the colonies said that they were free from Great Britain, the 4th of July is sometimes called America's birthday. Every year since then, Independence Day has been celebrated on July 4th with parades, music, gun salutes, cannon fire, and yes, even fireworks. I hope you enjoyed learning about the 4th of July today. Goodbye till next time.
Another important philosophical idea that they put forth in that was that if government was not protecting the rights of people, then people should get rid of it and replace it with something else. There were several real important philosophical ideas put forth. All people are equal. But like I said, if government is doing its job to protect the rights of everybody, then people should get rid of it.
Yeah, the problem is who decides whether it's doing its job or not.
Well, that's always the problem whenever you bring up one of these philosophical topics, whether it's ethics, politics. What is the truth? Don't ask me. I'm like Socrates. I know. I don't know. And I know I don't know.
And that's the problem. The problem is not the people who know they don't know. The problem is the people who don't know they don't know and pretend like they do know. And not only that, we talked about Christians, but what a good Christian is someone who tries to do the right thing and cares for others. And when you get to the place where you're controlling others and doing things for yourself, then you kind of left Christianity behind. And that's the reason we teach history. We want people to study civics. We want people to read the Declaration of Independence because it says all men are created equal. Who wrote that? Thomas Jefferson. What did Thomas Jefferson have? Slaves. Are slaves men and women? Or are they animals? Are they chattel? There was a big philosophical discussion. And in the South, they said, black people are not people. They're lower than people. They're not human. We all know on the face of it that that's not true. It's just not true. I mean, it's a complete fallacy, which gives you the idea of how malleable the human spirit, the human mind is. You can make it believe whatever you want to believe. A lot of people now believe that the election of 2020 was a fraud and lots of illegal people voted. There's no evidence of that whatsoever, but they still believe that because they believe what they want to believe. They believe their own facts, and that's the problem. You can have your own beliefs, but you can't have your own facts. And that's where we need to get back to. All right. Geez, I wasn't going to do anything more political, and here I went again. So.
Well, that's my fault.
So, that's the main thing I wanted to bring up was that's the reason we do history. That's the reason we study history. That's the reason we want history taught to our kids, is we want them to understand that it's not a perfect nation. It's a nation we are striving to make perfect, and our founding fathers knew what was right. It just took them a while to get there. George Washington freed his slaves. While he was alive? No. After he died. Thomas Jefferson treated Sally Jennings as a decent person, but he still kept her as a slave. He did not free her, even though he slept with her and had children with her. Sally Hemings, I'm sorry. So everybody has little chinks in their belief system. Everybody has things they were trying to live up to, but just can't quite make it. That doesn't make the struggle illegal. It doesn't make the struggle not worth doing. It means we're all human and we all need to strive for being better than what we are. That's the reason we belong to this community. Okay, Roberta is going to talk about Unitarian Universalism. And that's what
I said I was going to talk about.
That's what our little thing on the screen is for, dear Mr. President. See, this is a Universalist statement from the website with the chalice. We have elevated you to a position that is larger and more demanding than any one person can reasonably be expected to carry. We do not ask that you be perfect, only that you be faithful and honest with us, that to the best of your ability you lead us in directions of peace, prosperity, in ways that will build a safer, greener, more just, more livable world. An open letter to President Obama.
Okay, it's my turn now. I'm going to be speaking from a book called A Chosen Faith. Do any of you have this book by any chance? You have this book?
Yes, I went ahead and bought one.
You really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was only $3.
Only $3.
$3
Well, on the
on
back it
Amazon.
says it was $15, so it's gotten cheaper.
Yes.
This was my brother-in-law John Johansson's book, and when John died, Betty Lou, my sister, gave me this book, which was John's, and it really, I think it's a great book, don't you?
Yes.
Tim?
I've not finished it yet, but it's got a lot of interesting information in it.
Well, and the people that it talks about are so interesting. The introduction is first about Forest Church. So I will read to you about Forest Church. All theology is autobiography. It's autobiography. As are most sweeping generalizations, this one is false. Yet it does provide a useful hook for ministers who enjoy talking about themselves. The most recent minister to stake this claim is a Presbyterian, and that interested me since I went from a little country church on the Hog Path, you probably all know it, Taylor Chapel, the little church. I went from there to the Presbyterian church in Greenville, and now here I am here because David and I decided the Presbyterian church was not for us. But anyway, the most recent minister to stake this claim about ministers is a Presbyterian, but he is also a novelist, which may explain his fascination with, quote, the flesh-made word. His name is Frederick Buechner. You may pronounce it for me if you wish. I enjoy I'm reading from the book. I enjoy the novels and number him among my favorite theologians. Not that I always agree with him. After all, I was a Presbyterian once myself. That is the novelist talking. When I attended Sunday school irregularly, I must confess the difference between good and bad Presbyterians was clear. Good Presbyterians chose the right colors and stayed inside the lines when they colored. But I was a bad Presbyterian for more important reasons than my lack of artistic talent. I did not believe what I was being taught, so I left the Presbyterian church, wandered for a time, and then happily became a Unitarian Universalist. This was an act of kindness to the Presbyterians as much to myself. After all, the Presbyterian church is full of bad Presbyterians. This is what he was writing. The last thing in the world is they need another bad Presbyterian in their churches. Equating theology and autobiography may be somewhat easy, but less so perhaps for Unitarian Universalists than for followers of other faiths. For most of us, our faith did not choose us, we chose it. Born Catholic, Jewish, Protestant, Muslim, or into a secular or mixed household, when it came time for us to affiliate with a religious institution, we sought one that fit our own thinking, not one that imposed its thinking on us. This is even true for individuals born into Universalist families, Unitarian Universalist families. In our religious education programs, though we place special emphasis on liberal religious traditions and values, we also introduce our children to many different religious and theological approaches, encouraging them to formulate their own beliefs and make their own commitments. Unitarian Universalists are neither a chosen people nor a people whose choices are made for them by theological authorities, ancient or otherwise. We are a people who choose. Ours is a faith whose authority is grounded in contemporary experience, not ancient revelation. Though we find ourselves naturally drawn to the teachings of our adopted religious forebears, these teachings echo with new insights of our own. Okay, now Ralph Waldo Emerson. Ralph Waldo Emerson did not seek disciples. He sought people who could use their minds and tap their souls as profoundly as he did. In a Unitarian Universalist church, revelation is an ongoing process. Each of us is a potential harbinger of meaning. In this spirit, what follows is very much a personal introduction to Unitarian Universalism. The light of our shared faith is refracted through two prisms. John Behrens and I lay no claim to objectivity, yet by writing this work together, we hope that the results are at least a bit less subjective than if either of us had attempted the task alone. At All Souls Unitarian Church in New York City, the church we were privileged to serve together as ministers, John was the rabbi to my evangelist. This is not the only way our styles differed. Emerson once divided authors into two categories. He called them spiders and bees. By such a measure, I am a spider who spins what he has to say out of himself. John is more of a bee flitting from flower to flower, gathering nectar. We've written this book together for another reason. If you ask what Unitarian Universalists believe, two answers, especially if they vary, are almost certainly better than one. In our circle of faith, when two or more gather, a loving argument is a sure sign that the Spirit is moving among us. Yet far more unites than divides us. Unitarian Universalist minister David Rankin, a minister of the Fountain Street Church in Grand Rapids, Michigan, lists 10 beliefs we hold in common. Okay, here we go, Unitarians. 10 beliefs we hold in common. We believe in the freedom of religious expression. We believe in tolerance of religious ideas. We believe in the authority of reason and conscience. We believe in the search for truth. We believe in the unity of experience. We believe in the worth and dignity of each human being. We believe in the ethical application of religion. We believe in the force of love, that the governing principle in human relationships is the principle of love. We believe in the necessity of the democratic process. We believe in the importance of a religious community. Do those all make sense? And these are items which we believe. We have no explicit creed, either theological or social, to guide us. Yet, when one considers these basic points of agreement, it is no surprise that Unitarians and Universalists, by the way, the two denominations merged in 1961 to form the Unitarian Universalist Association. In the following pages, we will meet Unitarian Universalist laypersons and ministers who have been instrumental in promoting American independence, public education and health care, social services to the poor, abolition of slavery, animal rights, suffrage for women, civil rights for minorities, the rights and dignity of homosexuals, and women's equality. We follow all that. The Rankin's list is one of individuals' view of the beliefs we held in common, not a consensus statement. We do have such a statement, however, and it was inspired not by the men, but by the women in our movement. This is not unusual, given our long tradition of supporting an equal voice for women in all human endeavor. Not only does our denomination have a larger percentage of women ministers than any other. Today, some 60% of our candidates for ministry are women. But ours was also the first to officially sanction a woman minister, and that was Olympia Brown in 1863. You all know of Olympia Brown, I know. In that same great tradition, it was a group of women, lay and ordained, who headed the campaign for a revision of our denominational bylaws. Over 3 years and through a democratic process, we incorporated the thoughts of Unitarian Universalists in churches and fellowships through the United States and Canada. The following statement of principles, enacted by the General Assembly of 1986, captures the essence of our common faith. Now, whether these, which they declared in 1986, are still current, I do not know, but I'm assuming they are still current. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and understanding, the rights of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we, as Unitarians, are a part. The living tradition we share draws from many sources. Direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder, affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces that create and uphold life. Words and deeds of prophetic women and men, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. Wisdom from the world's religions, which inspires us in our ethical and spiritual life. Jewish and Christian teachings, which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves. Humanist teachings, which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, and warn us against idolatries of the mind and spirit. spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. In some respects, this book is unusual for its genre. To introduce our history and theology, we employ a form of free association, alighting here and there according to theme, rather than presenting facts in a linear progression. Furthermore, because we draw heavily from personal experience, the churches we have served receive disproportionate attention, as do our individual prejudices. By the same token, unlike most such works, this one is not uncritical. We celebrate our faith, of course, but we also attempt independently to judge our faithfulness to it. This revised edition contains 2 chapters, each focusing on earth-centered religious traditions. Our faith continues to grow and change with changing times. That is why we choose it. I would like some comments from somebody. Do you find this interesting? Or am I just talking to the wind, or what?
No, it's very interesting. Thank you.
I would like to use the book again, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree you're preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
Yeah, preaching to the choir.
Preaching to the choir. But the one thing that, right when you ended, I think is the most salient point of the whole presentation is choice. Unitarian Universalists believe in choosing, the freedom to choose, whether it's democratic choosing, whether it's the woman's right to choose, whether it's choosing your religion, whether it's choosing what your religion looks like. You are free to choose. You're free to come here and choose to be with us. You're free to come and present other alternatives. We were more than happy to have the pagans here until the pagans tried to remove the opportunity of choice for the rest of us. That we will not abide. Everyone has an opportunity for choice.
Well, I'm going to read this last sentence again. This revised edition contains 2 chapters, each focusing on earth-centered religious traditions. Our faith continues to grow and change with changing times, and that is why we choose it.
Yep.
Mike.
And as we study, we inquire, we search for truth, we're doing that with an open mind and consideration of others. And we're under no obligation to go out and convert other people to believe what we believe because it's written down, or it's historical, or it's autobiographical. It's not a structure that we feel compelled to convince others to believe exactly what we believe. And that is so different from many established religions. So on one hand, we're very free to think, but as we think, inquire, and explore, we're also governed by ethics, morality, and also honesty and integrity as we continue our search for truth.
Does anyone else like to say something?
First of all, I like that statement. We judge our faithfulness to our faith. So in other words, we're always critiquing ourselves, wondering if we are true to what we have faith in. And our faith is grounded in contemporary experience. That one does something in it that all philosophy students really love, and that is it's going to make me think, because I'm going to have to think about that one and see what I come up with. So you and that book gave me something to think about, which is always great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I pasted a little note in here that I wanted to mention. 15 Catholic churches closing in Columbus now. There is a shortage of priests and church attendance with the 15 Catholic churches closing in Columbus. That was a sad thing, I thought, to read. But anyway, I read it to you. I would like to speak about more of this if you agree. Now, if you don't want to hear me anymore, that's fine. But this book is really wonderful. And John Johansson has written little notes in it that I find interesting. And if you so wish, I will speak on this book again. If not, I won't.
We have lots of open days in August.
Yes.
I have to wait till August.
You don't have to. You can do it next week if you want.
Yeah. Seems like a break. What do you think?
I will do it if you wish. If you wish. Do it sometime.
All right, let's see. Our offering, as is usual, maybe I should come up with an offering statement. A little over a short time, so we're not going to do that this time. If you need something, take something out. If you are able to put something in. And what are we hearing?
This is called Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Yankee Doodle Dandy. Go right along with our 4th of July theme. Closing hymn is 159. This is my song. A song of peace for their land and mine. The hallmark of a Unitarian Universalist, it's not just for us. Extinguishing the Chalice, Democracy's Benediction by Lucas Hergert. We are, what's going on?
Closing up shop on me.
Oh, got your fingers caught in the board?
I think she's got chicken.
Did you get your fingers?
Democracy's Benediction. We are democracy. Unruly, definitely unruly. Unfinished and unrelenting. People of rebellious joy, taking to the streets. Underground resilience, resisting complacence. The pleasure of activism organizing into simple hope. We are democracy. People of principles taking on principalities. Witnessing the worth of those called unworthy. Justice now gaining ground. Integrity of an interdependent existence, extending a living democracy in heads, hands, and hearts. We know that democracy can die, can ossify, brittle byproducts of bygone idealists, plotting politicians, pirating votes, corporations cannibalizing our care for the world. Look, it can wither, distend, come to an end. Democracy, today we will love you alive, make you ours, make you thrive, and vote as though our hope is on the line. And we'll talk about voting. You all know about the August election coming up. You need to vote no. That's all I'm going to say now, but I will explain it more as the weeks go on. Vote no in August. All right, our postlude.
Give me your tired.
Give me your tired, your poor, your other masses. Okay.
Rewrote it from the whole new Colossus flat with Lazarus.
Always liked that song.
Yes.
That's a good one, Lloyd.
Irving Berlin.
Charles Spencer always has you guys choir.
Yeah, yeah. For a very long time.
So Charlotte's also, right?
You're between the ears is, I think it's Aspen. It's someplace in Colorado on the 4th of July last year. These are the mounted patrol. They're at the firehouse. And I know it's in Colorado somewhere because you notice from the turnout coat, this lady is on the fire department. Notice the color of her hair?
Yeah, I did.
That's not something you're going to see in a very conservative place. She would, number one, there wouldn't be women in conservative places, and number two, they would be women that would toe the line. So, but the people are there, and you can tell it's in Colorado because if you look at the top, you can see the mountain peak in the back.
Yeah.
So, great place to be. All right, there's July 4th themed snacks back there. My cupcakes turned over, so some of the frosting is stuck on the bottom. Just take your finger and scoop it up and put it on top of the cupcake that you want. And for those of you who like the atomically preserved one, there's some little Debbie cakes too.
Her and my granddaughter, Tasha,